Hey, what's up guys, it's Azahi here. I want to talk about the state of the game, and in my opinion, the best way to do that is by using another game as a benchmark. After all, in order to have a true understanding of if a game is in a good or bad state, you need to define exactly what that entails. To be honest, when I tried comparing the state of War Robots to that of other games in the past, their issues almost seemed like video game equivalent of first world problems. In order to be as generous to War Robots as possible, let's consider a game that's currently under a lot of fire from its player base, Overwatch 2. The gaming community is currently up in arms about the decisions of upper management in Overwatch 2. So much so that players have been review bombing it to the point where it's become the #1 lowest rated game of all time on Steam. So what exactly have Overwatch 2 done to deserve all this backlash? Well, to sum it up real simply, the developers promised that they would add a full PvE campaign to the game but had to cancel it because they couldn't deliver. Instead, they offered significantly scaled back PvE missions. Now of course there's other issues, but this is the main concern that's really got the ball rolling on the Overwatch 2 hate train. So anyway, let's compare and contrast War Robots and Overwatch 2 to see the state that War Robots is in. The first thing I'd like to go over is balancing. War Robots has had a terrible history when it comes to balancing, but how does that stack up against Overwatch? Well guys, I'll give it to you straight. The balancing of War Robots is incomprehensibly worse than that of the worst rated game on Steam. Let's consider the recent balance patch notes for Overwatch and compare it to those of War Robots. Notice how the nerfs in Overwatch are small yet meaningful changes, rather than crippling annihilations of an entire character. Also notice how each and every change has a comprehensive developer's notes that describes exactly why they're doing what they're doing. Developer comments on nerfs are something that War Robots used to do years ago, but they have since stopped trying to make meaningful, thought-out balance changes. Their strategy has become to quite literally cut numbers in half to make stuff useless. Another thing to keep in mind is that Overwatch has historically walked back changes that the community hated. An example is how one hero, Roadhog, got a nerf to his gun that made it difficult to secure kills on enemies that he grabbed with his hook. This made him begin to underperform, so they partially walked back the nerf to make his gun do damage in between what it was before and after the nerf. A comparable situation in War Robots is how Ao Jun got nerfed to the point where it can only fly for 6 seconds and then must wait 22 seconds to fly again. It has been in the same sorry state for years, even though Ao Jun is a tier 4 robot. Everyone hated the nerf because it made Ao Jun useless. Has Pixonic partially walked back the nerf? No, instead they just released 7 new flying robots that do the same thing Ao Jun did but strictly better. The reason that balance updates in War Robots are so bad isn't because Pixonic is incompetent. No, they're so bad because they aren't actually designed to balance the game. Balance updates are almost explicitly used as monetization tools to encourage players to buy new robots. Unsurprisingly, Overwatch's balancing is in a much better state. All games have bugs and glitches. Both War Robots and Overwatch are no exception. The difference between the games here is based on how they're handled. Somewhat recently, there was a bug that affected a fan-favorite character called Sigma. Basically, you could exploit a change that was made to his ultimate ability that would allow you to fly around as much as you wanted, obviously giving you an advantage. The developers disabled the use of Sigma in competitive game modes the day after the bug was discovered, and the bug was patched 2 days later. That means this bug took a total of 3 days to fix, and players only actually had to deal with people abusing it for 1 day. Now how are things looking on the War Robots side? Well, it's possible you might already know where I'm going with this, but War Robots actually had a similar bug that gave certain players an advantage. What I'm talking about is, of course, the infamous Ardent Amugi hitbox bug, which made players using Ardent Amugi virtually unkillable. How long do you think it took Pixonic to fix it? I'll give you a minute, take your time. 109 days. That's right, it took Pixonic over 3 months to fix the Amugi hitbox bug. And keep in mind, this isn't mentioning that the Cruel Angler had the same exact issue before Amugi as well. Pixonic gave us no communication, didn't disable the bugged robot, nothing. The bug just ran rampant for months. The only time I've ever seen Pixonic patch a bug in a matter of days is when it financially affects them. For example, a bug that allowed players to get 30 free memoriam from the daily task just by upgrading Punishers was basically patched in like 2 days. Anyway, it's clear that Overwatch is in a better state when it comes to bugs. We all know it. War Robots is plagued with cheaters. Cheating clans run rampant for months before they're punished. Pixonic gives us little to no communications beyond We're working on it, and yet we still regularly run into cheaters every couple matches. In Overwatch, I've only actually ran into a cheater once, and after reporting them, I later got a message that said that my report led to them getting banned, which is a really nice thing that some games do. Now, you may say, Adazahi, that's just anecdotal evidence, it means nothing. And you'd be completely right. So to perform a pretty quick test, I went and searched the term hacker on the Overwatch subreddit and the WarRobots subreddit, and as you'll see, they're somewhat comparable in the amount of people complaining about hackers, maybe just a little more on the WarRobots side. You may be tempted to conclude that the hacker situation is about equal here, but any thought about this is shut down the second you realize the Overwatch subreddit has nearly 5 million subscribers compared to the WarRobots subreddit's 40,000. The WarRobots subreddit is about 125 times smaller than the Overwatch subreddit, and yet the amount of complaints about hackers are extremely similar, so Overwatch is actually in a better state here too. Also a message to Pixonic. We need more communication. Some months ago, the Overwatch developers reported that they banned 10,000 cheating accounts. This is good news to calm an unhappy player base, so please consider giving us information as you take care of the cheater situation. WarRobots has 12 currencies, Overwatch has 3. Enough said. Bad matchmaking is an issue that just about every multiplayer game has in some amount. To be honest, both games aren't great when it comes to this aspect. Sometimes you'll get dumb teammates and genius enemies, and that's just how the world works. Since our games are probably about equal in matchmaking, let's instead compare how each game has taken care of people who abuse matchmaking systems to their advantage. In WarRobots, we call them tankers. In Overwatch, they're called smurfs. Now, why is it that they're called smurfs in Overwatch? Well, it's because smurfing is different from tanking. Tanking isn't actually really possible in Overwatch, which is already a really bad sign for WarRobots since tanking has been and still is an issue in our game. So how has Overwatch stomped tanking? Well, it's simple really. The report button actually works in that game. If you're throwing matches, you'll be basically immediately punished. If your entire team reports you, you already get like a 2-hour timeout from playing in competitive. This is the industry standard in most games, although to avoid false reporting, permanent actions like account bans aren't taken without a manual review, and people who abuse the report button are also in for some punishment. Still, just having to wait several hours in between tanking matches in itself discourages the act enough that it's extremely rare for someone to bother trying in Overwatch. Anyway, back to the topic of smurfing. The key difference is that smurfing involves making a new account that starts in the lowest league and slaughtering new players with the massive skill difference. This issue has mostly been resolved, as since the release of Overwatch 2, you must connect your phone number to a new account, so you can only make as many accounts as you have phones. So considering Overwatch has certainly got a better handle on their equivalent of tankers, we can again say Overwatch's matchmaking is in a better state than WarRobots'. That being said, I must commend WarRobots for at least capping how many leagues you can drop. This strategy isn't flawless and it sure took a long time to implement, but it's much better than nothing. You may have listened to my little rant here and thought something along the lines of, well, if Overwatch is so great, why don't you just go play that? And I wouldn't blame you if you did. The fact is, I do play games other than WarRobots, including Overwatch, though only occasionally. But still, WarRobots is my main game. I'm literally a WarRobots YouTuber. Who would spend so much of their precious time on a game that they hate? Well, not me, that's for sure. I didn't make this video because I hate WarRobots and I think other games are just so much better. No, I made this video because I love WarRobots and I fear that it's shifting towards an unsustainable path. I want to see this game succeed. I've been playing since 2015 and I don't plan on jumping ship anytime soon. When I see that WarRobots is in such a poor state that even a game getting universal ridicule for its terrible mismanagement still somehow has superior core features, it makes me a little worried about the future. I think Pixonic needs to step back and work on the parts of WarRobots that have rusted over time. They just keep pumping out endless content, new robots, events, weapons, drones. They're so laser focused on content that they're forgetting the actual core of the game. The player experience is suffering, and I only hope that Pixonic has some plans that I don't know about. Thanks for watching.